So thank you everyone for joining our webinar. Very excited to present to you Zone & Co, a partnership Annexa's developed over a few years now. Really exciting to show you its capabilities and how we can really extend the NetSuite platform to further automate your processes. So introductions, I know a few of you on the call, but I'm Annexa Iyer, Head of Customer Success here at Annexa. So essentially looking after our 130, 135 odd customers across ANZ. So I get the delightful role of helping you expand your capabilities, your use of NetSuite, and as you grow, we grow with you. Introducing Herb, do you want to give yourself an intro?
Sure. Thanks, Ananda. Hi, guys. Herbert Hayes is my name. I'm new to Zone. I think I've clocked into month number 4 and been an ex-NetSuite user. And now I'm here to support our partners like Annexa and our clients. So if Annexa can't help you, we certainly can. And but I'm sure leaving you in Annexa's hands are in good hands. So yeah, thank you.
Ashley?
All right, it's my turn. Thank you. So Ashley Nordstrom, and I'm solution consultant for our APAC region. So I work along with Herb and also our partners such as Annexa, and I do the live demonstrations of our product to help give you guys a really good look and feel on how our products could obviously work for you.
Great, thanks guys.
Thank you.
So let's get into it. In terms of agenda for today, so we'll go through a little bit about Annexa because there's some guys on the call who don't know much about Annexa as well as Zone & Co, and then we'll get into what Zone & Co bring in terms of capabilities beyond NetSuite's standard functionality. We'll then look at two applications in particular, so OCR, so that's your scanning of your vendor bills into NetSuite, and then an approvals workflow off the back of that. So exciting to get to show you the actual product. And we'll leave a bit of time at the end to go through any questions you've got. We're looking at about 35 minutes altogether, so plenty of time to get into any detailed questions you have at the back of it. You can also use chat on the side. We'll monitor that throughout the webinar. So Annexa, we've been around quite a number of years now, over 30, started off as a Sage house, and then about a decade ago realized we need to grow a bit faster, grow into the cloud, and that's where we fully focused on the NetSuite ERP offering. Really excited over those years to have done quite a number of implementations across ANZ. We've established teams across Melbourne, Sydney, Queensland, New Zealand, and now Asia as well. So quite a lot of expertise across the JPAC region to help your businesses as you grow as well. We also are excited that we've been able to partner with guys like Zone & Co to bring you not just NetSuite, but extend the capabilities, leveraging other applications, integrations, and yeah, it'd be great to show you what that looks like further on in the webinar. In terms of our customer base, so some great iconic Australian brands across the board, many industries we support. So anyone out there who's in a similar industry or can see someone up there on the board that's doing similar things, whether that's a software platform or warehouse and distribution or a not-for-profit, Annexa's got quite a broad brush of skills across many industries across ANZ. In terms of our partnership, so I've mentioned a couple of times, it's really important Annexa just doesn't stand still. So NetSuite's a great base platform, but there are certain capabilities we do need to bring in a best-of-breed solution, whether that be an integrated option or a native built on NetSuite, which is what Zone & Co will show a bit later. Really excited with our partnership. It's been going strong for a few years now. And now we've been able to extend those capabilities, and Herb will get into a bit more detail of what Zone & Co can bring to the table in terms of their applications. But it's a strong partnership, and the real takeaway is if you're engaging with Annexa or Zone & Co, you've got one team who can manage your capabilities and your processes. So Herb, I'll pass over to you to just give a bit more flavour on Zone & Co and the exciting app you've got.
Sure. Thanks, Ananda, for allowing us to be here today, and thank you everyone for joining in our webinar today. So what I'd like to do is just give you a little bit of history on Zone. So if we just flick over to the next slide. Now, basically, Zone & Co, in the early days, we were an Annexa providing services for clients. And then in 2016, Zone decided to hand all of that business that they were doing and they sold it off, and they chose to become purely a NetSuite developer partner. And what that means is, well, they made the choice to align with NetSuite because, in our opinion, it is the best ERP in the market today. And then in 2018, they introduced Zone Billing, which and it came about because they were finding they were doing a lot of work with companies that were starting to do software as a service, so bill on usage, doing complex billing scenarios. So they themselves came out with Zone Billing in 2018. Then what happened in 2021, Insight loved what Zone were doing, and they said, we're going to inject $76 million into your organization and we're going to help you grow. And through the process, through acquisition, we purchased Fast4, and they were following the same philosophy as Zone, which is to build native NetSuite solutions. And they, as you can see on the slide, have a number of solutions, and a couple that we're going to talk about today are capture and approvals. And then what happened in 2022, Zone acquired Satori Reporting. So any company that wants to take feeds from NetSuite, now Satori Reporting is actually built on Power BI. And what that means, it can take feeds from NetSuite, feeds from your inventory management tool, and gives managers, CEOs of organizations a really good feeling of where their company is, or reporting on where their company is. And then I'm not too sure if you've heard off the grapevine just recently, Zone purchased ICS, or Infinite Cloud. So we now have a payroll solution. And just to reinforce what I mean by NetSuite, or Zone being native, all the Zone apps, except for Satori Reporting, fit within the walls of NetSuite. So we're installing a bundle. It's not as though we're installing something on the side and then trying to plug it in, which can open up the doors for security issues and all of those sorts of things. So by being within the walls of NetSuite, it's very, very easy to install. And I'll talk about implementation shortly. It actually looks and feels like a NetSuite app, so there's not a whole lot of training on how it looks on your screen. And it's built by being in the walls of NetSuite, it's secure and it's following all of the NetSuite security protocols. So if we go over to the next slide, I'll just quickly cover off briefly the tools. Well, I've already talked about billing for complex billing scenarios, capture for AP automation, reconcile for bringing in your bank statements, and an extension to that is we bring in your credit card statements as well. Zone payments, we give you an integration into Stripe, so you can send out your bill, the client hits, I'll click on this link and pay the bill, and away we go from there. Zone approvals, Ashley will talk about shortly. And then we've got the Satori Reporting. So we've got pre-built 50 reports and dashboards designed by CFOs and CIOs. So you get a really good handle of how your businesses are running. So that's a quick overview. Thank you again for allowing us to chat, and I'll hand you over to Ashley. Oh, sorry, just quickly touching on some of our clients. As you can see, Lloyd's, UBT, of course, are a global organisation, cheap as chips. So, yeah, we've got a big or an extensive breadth of clients. So if you're turning over 10 to 15 mil or above, we can normally accommodate you. Cool. Thanks, Ashley.
No, that's okay. I'll unmute myself because it's my turn now. All right. So as mentioned today, we are going to be running through our scan and capture application. So that's our native NetSuite AP automation tool. And then we will also be running through ZoneApprovals. So they are standalone applications. You don't have to have one to be able to use the other, but I am going to show how they can also seamlessly integrate with each other, as well as kind of, a bill being processed, and then how our approvals can then also help seamlessly send that out on an approvals process in your NetSuite environment. All right. So everyone keeps harping on we're native for NetSuite. That's what we do. We build native applications, so all within NetSuite. We're following on with your user access and role permissions as well. So of course, you're not having to look at rebuilding who can process what and code to what subsidiary or GL accounts. We're following on with all of your pre-built permissions and access. We've got three-way matching for purchase order transactions embedded within our scan and capture. We've got a split screen view within your NetSuite environment, so giving you a view of your supplier's invoice on the left-hand side and your NetSuite billing form on the right-hand side. We're all about user friendliness, so we've got a very friendly UI. That's of course going to drag and drop functionality, and you can of course customize that as well. And we've got a clickable auto learning feature, which I'll actually show how that works in the live demonstration. Okay, so I'm going to start sharing my screen. Making sure I'm sharing the right one here. I've got way too many screens to navigate. Just checking you can see my, yes, computer mouse waving around on that screen. Excellent. Okay, so within my NetSuite environment, I've got both my bundles installed for scan and capture or ZoneCapture and for ZoneApprovals. And you've noticed I do have some icons here, so we will just quickly run through those. So incoming, this has already got a listing of invoices ready for my review and validation to process as vendor bills. They've been sent across to my NetSuite environment via an email plugin, and that's how the data is sent across and captured to then lie behind this icon. Process this month, it's simply a nice listing of what I've published for the month once it's come out of my incoming queue. Of course, any information is still stored within your NetSuite environment, and you can still run further audit reporting, but this just gives you a nice little overview for the month after you've processed from this incoming queue. So we'll jump into the incoming queue, and I'm just going to open that in a new tab. Okay, so this is then going to load my dashboard or listing for processing. So within this listing, I can also customize how this is presented. And if I have multiple people processing AP, it can be customized and remembered on a user level basis. So if I want this column to live over here, I can simply drag and drop that. I've got some nice filtering options also available on all of these columns as well. So how I want to sort, do I want to filter out a specific status? I can also hide and show columns, whatever ones I feel may be more relevant to me with the information being presented. Anything in blue is containing a hyperlink to another record within NetSuite. So I can click on my supplier, and that's going to then pop open a window to my vendor record tab. Similar with purchase orders, if the system has found a match against my supplier's invoice and a PO within NetSuite, I can also navigate to that, and that would then bring open my purchase order. We've got duplicate detection as well under this system alert column. So I've got duplicate incoming. So that's indicating that I have two or more than one transaction that we've picked up the same information for in this listing itself for processing. I do also have a status that can be available that's duplicate transaction. That would indicate something has already been posted and has GL impact within NetSuite with this same information that's been picked up. Okay, so now we'll go in to process one of these invoices. Because we are on a little bit of a time constraint today, I am just going to be doing an example of an expense transaction and showing you how the OCR picks up certain data and that's presented to you. We do, of course, have full capabilities for purchase orders and three-way matching, but I'm probably not going to have enough time to kind of delve deeply into that on an invoice transaction basis. So we will just be doing an expense invoice and seeing the capabilities that lies behind that. So I've got my supplier's invoice presented here on the left-hand side and my NetSuite billing on the right. So as mentioned, we bring across your bill form. So fully customizable. If you have a custom form, you can even flip between the forms. Maybe you have one set up for asset purchases versus standard expense purchases, and that would then refresh and still contain all of the pre-seeded data for you as well. You would, of course, confirm just the details the OCR's captured, such as my invoice number, invoice date has been pre-filled and brought across. And we've also got a feature called clickable auto learning. So that can be used to custom map extra header level information that's contained on this invoice. So I have got a custom field that's set up here, and I've just got it called demo just for the purposes of this. So I can simply click on this field, come across to any of the text that I have on this invoice and click, and it's going to pre-fill for me. If I want more information, I can drag and draw a box, and that's going to pre-fill across. So it has auto learning embedded within this functionality. So after I've mapped and hit save on this invoice, that would be there for any future invoices scanned in for this supplier, and that would be mapped across to my relevant field. I can have multiple mappings done as well. It's not just a single mapping application on this form. We'll come down to the lines that have been captured. So as mentioned, this is an expense transaction. So none of this has been pre-filled from a purchase order. The OCR has scanned and captured a lot of this data for me. So it's brought across my description, it's brought across my amounts, and then I've also got some GL coding that's come across here and been predefined, I guess you could say. So we have a couple of different options how that can be pre-seeded. So you can have a default expense account saved on a vendor's account. You can also have some matching rules set up and saved within the system. And when it meets certain criteria, the system knows to post and change that GL coding accordingly, which you'll see my shipping has already gone to my freight expense account. So I don't actually have to manually change and intervene for that posting. Okay. Now I am going to have to put in a location here, or my form's going to jump up and down that it's a mandatory field. All right. So once I'm happy with how an invoice has been presented and I've confirmed how that's going to be posting, I would simply just go ahead and hit save. So at the moment, that record was a proposal of information. It contained no GL impact, and I could still edit and change whatever had been presented on that proposal of information. It's upon hitting save that we're then creating a bill form or bill record within NetSuite. And if you do have approvals, that is then when it would naturally follow on with that progression in your NetSuite account as well. So I could submit for approval, and based on how that was set up, it would then follow on with that path. We do also save a copy of the PDF record under the Communications Files tab. So for auditing and archiving purposes, you don't have to manually drag and drop those things. No, it did not account for the GST correctly, and there's a reason for that. Is my colleague had set this up in my EMEA account very late last night because my APAC demo account had decided to fail on me last night. So purely for the purposes of today, it didn't, because I hadn't actually had that done in the setup. I was really hoping that no one actually noticed that, because I noticed it as soon as it loaded and I went, oh dear, they didn't set a GST account on this. So yes, you are very right. It didn't pick that up, and that's because my colleague had set this up for me last night because my APAC demo account failed, and I didn't want to cancel our wonderful webinar for today either. So can a rule be made for location to be auto chosen? Yes. So yeah, we can set rules for location, department, class to be kind of pre-filled in areas as well. Okay. So that's it for the moment for scan and capture. We are going to come back and revisit this same dashboard, but I'm going to be using our approvals process to then process an invoice and push that out through our approvals application as well. So I'm going to quickly just stop sharing my NetSuite environment, and I've got some slides to pull up, and I hope that this is going to work so everyone can see the slides. Excellent. All right, so now we're going to be doing a really brief overview of our approvals application. So again, completely native to NetSuite. Now this application, along with all of our applications, has been done mainly by customer request. We had a lot of requests for users who wanted something to both couple with scan and capture for approvals that was easy for them to set up and not have heavy NetSuite knowledge or admin knowledge, scripting knowledge, to be able to customize an approvals workflow, set that up themselves, and then also be able to make quick edits and changes to those matrices that were saved in the system. So easy to configure. It's giving you that effortless flow for approvals. You're not having to manually chase where that's up to in the queue, because we do have a lot of default options, so nothing's going to get stuck or kind of sit with someone for any too long period of time. And we do have substitute matrices for when someone could be on leave and you want to assign a delegate. We've got email approval, so you may have users who don't hold NetSuite licensing, who you may also want to push out approvals on specific transactions, and giving you complete visibility, because we have also a manager's approvals overview, and we've also got a bulk approvals dashboard as well. Okay, so now I will get back to sharing my NetSuite environment. Okay, so again, my bundle is installed. I've got my zone approvals portlet here, and I've got 3 icons here. So at the moment, this is just an individual approvals portlet, We do have a manager's overview where this can be extended, and I can see not only my approvals assigned, but also my team's approvals. So if anyone's being tardy, where stuff may be stuck that I may have to intervene on within my NetSuite environment. Now, zone approvals does not have to be coupled with scan and capture. I want you to think of this process for multiple different transaction types. So purchase orders, journals, but I'm going to be using it with scan and capture today just to show how they can integrate with each other. But I do want you to keep in mind that this can be used for other transaction types within NetSuite as well. Okay, so I would navigate to my incoming dashboard, but first I'm just going to quickly navigate to a setup functionality of zone approvals, because this is going to give you a feel for why it's pushed out on a certain approvals process and it's been applicable to my record. So I would need an approvals matrix to be preceded within my configuration to have that applicable on transactional records. So this listing can show active, inactive, drafts, full audit reporting on what you've set up previously, and I can have a look at all of the information that's lying behind these. So multi-subsidiary approvals, anything really. So I'm going to just be opening my one I've got set up for my Australian subsidiary. So this is my pre-seeded matrix. So as we can see here, I have got some information contained behind this. I've got what subsidiary I want this applicable to, my record type. I can select multiple options here. So I may want a matrix that's applicable to both my Australian sub and perhaps my Germany subsidiary. I can have a one-to-one, or I can have it across all of my subs. Similar with my record type here, I can have a matrix set up for multiple record types, or I may want different applicable matrices. This is the transactions we currently support with our approvals process. When we get to our roadmap slide, we are always extending the supported transaction listing out with each release of zone approvals as well. So this listing is just going to get longer and longer of the different records that you can use this for. A base currency is set because we take into account exchange rates and then where that may lie with thresholds you have set, and push that out accordingly on an approvals process. My hierarchy that's linked here, this is defined and it's essentially what's pulled through my levels of approvals. So I can have very simple levels, or I can have quite complex levels that I may want a transaction to jump through a multi-level approval. A start date on when I want this to apply to transactions in the system. And I've got here some segmentation that I can also pull down. I don't have to use segmentation. I can simply then assign users to these levels, or I can bring across multiple segmentations and also bring across custom segments as well. So I may want it to be pushed on both department and location for that to be applicable and send it out on an approvals process. Within this drop down here, I'm not going to save this at the moment, but if I select add an approver, I've got even the option to say if my department is empty. So if someone hasn't coded something, I want it to be forwarded to someone else to have a look at. As you can see, multiple different options there to select. And then also with how I assign approvers. So I may have approvers based on a vendor, based on who created the transaction. I can have approval groups. Say I have a group of marketing team members, I may just want it assigned to a group, and whoever in that group gets to it first is then okay to approve that transaction. We can do it based on roles within NetSuite. And then, of course, I can do it by individual employee as well, so by users. So that's just giving you a little flavor on how that can be configured. You can make it complex. Supplier category. I would have to find out for you with that one. I don't recall seeing that in the listing here. Perhaps with groups, we could also define a supplier category maybe. I will find out and get back to you with that one. Okay, so that's my matrix that's been pre-seeded in the system. And I'm going to be then processing this particular transaction here because I know it's got the information contained already that's going to trigger that workflow that I have saved. So purely just for ease of time today that we're not having to wait while I kind of pre-fill and create this transaction, we're just going to save something that has my departments on a line level, and that's going to push out this on an approvals matrix. So I'm just going to save, location, of course. And then we'll wait for that and I will submit for approval. It's going to search for any applicable matrix within the system and then assign relevant approvers. Okay, so also while we're waiting for that to save and load, I will run through some of the other features that come with this application. So we can set delegate approvers for if someone is out of office on annual leave. You can have super approver functionality. So perhaps management may have authority to jump in on somebody else's approval workflow. And they're a bit tardy and they may just jump in and approve that step. Bulk approvals, email approvals, so many different options that we can have. So we've got a zone approvals tab on this bill. I've got active approval logs, historical, and you'll notice I've got an unapproved transaction accrual. Oh, my internet is not loving me today. We'll navigate back to this screen. I said this to Herb this morning. I'm like, the day I have a webinar is the day my internet is deciding to not play friends with me. Okay, and we've got an unapproved transaction accrual. So what this means is you can also set a time frame. If a transaction isn't approved, we can automatically post accrual journals for you within the system. So at month end, you have stuff that's not approved, but for reporting purposes, you still want to have that GL impact and know that for your reporting, what month end should have looked like for you. We can automate that within our system as well. So I've got some multi-level approvals here. It's been assigned to me as I was part of the admin department. And then it's also assigned another 2 users, so Jakob and Barbara. They were part of marketing, and the total marketing value was worth that it was on 2 levels for approval. We've got here the column if I assigned a delegate for approval, a group, who assigned it, when it was approved, if anyone overruled it, if it was redirected. So I can also redirect an approval if it wasn't meant for me. So many different options there. Now we'll quickly navigate back to my dashboard. So of course I can approve this, it's assigned to me. But on my dashboard here, I've also got bulk approvals. So I don't have to individually go into a transaction. I can be given a nice overview of what that is, who raised it, what's it for, and I can just also simply click down my listing. It will give me progress on where I'm up to, and I can just bulk approve and submit as well. Okay, I'm going to stop talking. I think that's as much as I probably have time to delve into without running ridiculously over, because I probably am anyway. But thank you, and any questions, we can obviously answer those for you. And we can also do some more in-depth demos one-on-one and do some more deep dive sessions on our application as well.
Thanks, Ashley. Did you want to wrap up the two features?
Oh, yes. I was just thinking I probably still need to talk and not mute myself.
That's all good. We're all waiting with bated breath for
Okay.
the baby to explode, but doing really well so far.
She's been so good.
I know, wonderful.
So we do have always improving our applications. So we're constantly pushing new releases, and they're always coming with additional features. So upcoming for ZoneApprovals. So within that matrix, you would have seen I had segmentation, both native NetSuite and custom segmentation. We're expanding that you can use any field as segmentation. So it doesn't have to be defined as a segment, that you can now customize the system to have it pushed out on any field that's available within your NetSuite account. We are changing or adding in that supported transaction listing. We're going to be including advanced intercompany journals, and then also vendor bill payments to be included in that drop-down listing next. For ZoneCapture, we're introducing the auto processing of purchase order bills. So if it means it met all of its three-way matching criteria, you were happy with it, you may not want your AP person to even interact on that. If it meets everything correctly, you may just want it saved as a vendor bill. So we can auto process those transactions. And we're extending our new three-way match. So we've had a new release of that, and it's algorithm and logic behind it. It is currently supported for items, but we're now extending that logic to include expense transactions in the new release as well.
Cool.
So that's it for me. I'll mute before this baby decides to get really fussy.
Thanks, Ashley.
You've got one more. Yeah,
implementation?
just before I wrap up, we've just got one more question from John about three-way matching, Ash.
Does it show variance by line? Yes, it does. And you can also set threshold tolerances that you may find applicable, whether that's by quantity or by rate. So you can also set up some tolerances, and then it would show the differences between those tolerances versus, item receipt, PO, and bill, and whether it was okay to post or not, and some nice audit reporting behind that as well.
Wonderful. Thanks, Ashley. Okay, to have ZoneCapture or any Zone app loaded, it's simply we get your NetSuite number, your sandbox number, and we just install the bundles onto your NetSuite implementation. Then what happens is every Monday, your people that have signed up the previous week to want to go with our product, the jobs get allocated every Monday. So that means that you'll be contacted by your implementation member who's been allocated your job, and they will basically set out the path moving forward as far from their point of view, which means they'll first do a configuration meeting, then they'll set up another meeting where we'll actually go through some of your images that we've or documents that we've scanned. We do some test runs, and we then have subsequent Q&A meetings. And then normally within a month, you're ready to load it or move it from your sandbox onto your production server, and you're up and running. it's a very cool, very smooth process. And again, by being in the walls of NetSuite, we follow the KISS principle, which is to keep it simple.
Perfect. Thanks, Herb. Thanks, Ashley. Monumental effort with Bubba on your lap. Thank you very much. Just a couple of additional questions before we wrap up. Just off the tail end of that, Herb, what's a typical implementation? A few weeks or a couple of months? What does that look like?
Implementation is you'll get it up and running after your first config meeting, and then the first meeting moving forward. So typically within 4 weeks, you're up and running and ready to rock and roll.
Great. And then in terms of team location, where's the Zone team based?
Well, Zone is global. Since we've purchased ICS, we've got a lot of additional resources in the APAC area, which we're very happy about. But it's great because we've got support in from EMEA when we need it for later in the day. And if we have some challenges earlier on in the day, we've got support out of the US. So we're very, very fortunate in this area.
Perfect. And across the ecosystem, there's customers all walks of life. What's your typical customer look like? Is there any limitations the guys need to consider?
Sure. We normally have a minimum threshold. So let's take Capture, for example. As soon as the poor person within your office is having to manually get your invoices and process them, when they get to around 50 or more, they're going to start tearing their hair out. So our minimum package is like a Capture 100. So it's how long you can last with the pain of having to do it manually to then make that transition. So a package 100 is our smaller, and then we go up to over 5,000 images that we're scanning a month. We're very, very lucky by the Abbey OCR component that we're using supports up to 240 languages. So we've got clients scanning Korean invoices, Japanese, and yeah, it's really fabulous.
Perfect. And then once we're up and running, we're using ZoneCapture, ZoneApproval. What does support look like, or is it a pretty self-sufficient tool that the guys will get?
Yes, they have got access to our knowledge base, so they can certainly access that. They have access to our support team by logging a support call. And but what we have in Australia, we also have a customer success representative who is regularly contacting our clients, finding out how they're going, what their pain is, and then addressing it before it becomes a challenge for them. So it works. It works very, very well.
Great. That's good to know, because that's always the key, really. Once you're up and running, how do we get help? And then a question came through from Fernanda. In terms of pricing, is this based on volume or is it user based? How does that work?
Okay, it's based on a number of documents scanned. So if you're scanning 100 invoices a month, a package 100, you're looking at about $100 a month for package 100. And then it goes up accordingly. We do have an overage, so we bill monthly. So if there is overage, we add that overage figure to the next month's bill, and we go up from there. Now, the really exciting thing with Capture is it's per document. So if you've got an invoice that's multiple pages, it's still regarded as one document. So, it makes the pricing very, very competitive.
That's great. Excellent. Well,
there was another question there previously. So currently only the finance team has access to NetSuite. It would depend. Are you looking for that for ZoneApprovals or ZoneCapture? So approvals, we can work without the realms of NetSuite licenses. We do have an email option. If you were looking at for AP functionality, I'm assuming your finance team would be the ones using that. So we do follow on with user access and role permissions within NetSuite. So because we're within the walls of your NetSuite environment, we follow on with your setup and restrictions. So approvals, you may not have to give them NetSuite access, but for using scan and capture, they would need NetSuite access, but still following on with role permissions and access within that as well.
Great, thanks, Ashley. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Hope you found that useful. Great engagement from the guys joining as well. If you want more info, more than happy to walk through a tailored presentation. Contact details are there, or you can reach out to Zone & Co as well. This is recorded as well, so if you need to share it internally, please do, and we'll chat to you soon. Thank you.
Lovely.
See you later.
Thanks for coming. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.